Oh man, this one, I gotta say, this video is not one that I'm gonna enjoy making because out of everyone, the entire lineup of fans, from the beginning, all the news about this Flash movie, because for anyone who doesn't know, this Flash movie's been in development for like, I think 8 years. Um, Back when like every other week DC was announcing a really cool idea that they would never follow up on again. Like I remember they announced like Michael B. Jordan was doing a Static movie. I think I might just be tripping about that, but I'm pretty sure that happened. And if it did and it didn't come to fruition, we'll never not be upset about that. The Flash released, and I did not see it in theaters because I was spoiled about a certain cameo later on in the movie that personally upsets me. It's one of the first big, like, blockbuster, well, apparently not blockbuster, but big, like, you know, superhero movies that I haven't gone to see in a while, because generally I go to see all the big ones. I waited until The Flash dropped on HBO Max, because I was spoiled about something that happens about halfway, well, really in the last act of the movie, which also sucks, but we'll get to that. So, this movie, if you'll notice, the tagline of the movie is Worlds Collide. And that's because this isn't really a Flash movie. At best, this movie is the worst Justice League movie. And I say that in the worst way possible. For some reason, they ended up going with Flashpoint as a jumping off point, which doesn't really make sense. This movie very famously has Michael Keaton's Batman returning, which is like a big part of the marketing campaign. A lot of the jokes going around when the movie was being made was that it was more of a Batman movie than a Flash movie because all the posters and stuff, I mean, even all the trailers at a point, were like a bunch of Batman stuff, 2 clips of the Flash like spliced in the middle there, and then the Flash. Like, it was a really strange time for the marketing of this movie. I really don't know what I was hoping this movie was going to be, because I knew it wasn't going to be good. Everyone knew it wasn't going to be good. The moment that they announced they were bringing Michael Keaton's Batman back as a core cardinal character, it kind of fundamentally told us that they weren't really making a Flash movie. This is a movie about the Flash that just barely even includes Barry Allen. I mean, they don't touch on really the Speed Force ever. They never really go into complex detail about, like, the Flash family. Not even remotely a part of this movie. Wally West is... Which I guess, you know, no one expected Wally West or, like, the Flash family to be involved in this first movie. That's kind of unfair. But we did expect it to be a Flash movie. And it just doesn't feel like that. From the start, we get a pretty solid opening scene showing probably the only time I think Ezra Miller's done a pretty good job at doing, like, Barry Allen. But that immediately leads into this big, like, fight with Batman, which is admittedly cool. It's cool seeing Ben Affleck, apparently in his last time in the role. Apparently he does a great Batman voice, which no one picked up on until now. So thanks, guys. He's also wearing a gray and blue suit, which I freaked out about when the trailer first came out, because it was during the Super Bowl that the trailer came out where they showed him in that outfit, and I freaked out, and then I actually saw it, and it looks like shit. So, for whatever reason, instead of just going with the very, very good-looking cloth, like, almost handmade look that they did with Batman v Superman, they went the exact opposite direction. And it just looks like a spandex suit with some of, like, the dirty detailing under it. You can see a little bit of detail under the fucking ribcage armor. I guess it makes sense for this, like, older Batman to be armored, but also they do such a comical and sort of, like, rambunctious take on him in this movie. He's, like, gliding and shit. Like, this isn't a realistic, like, Nolan-type Batman. This is the peak of silly comic book Batman, and I think it tracks for him to have that blue and gray suit there for that. But it doesn't make sense to give him a classic color scheme, but then almost like MCU-ify the suit to such an insane degree that I will never forgive, because again, this is probably the last time we ever see him as Batman. We get like a really short scene with Iris, and they set up this whole like, she seems like she just wants the scoop, and that's the vibe that Barry gets. And then she doesn't, and it's kind of, you're supposed to expect that that's like her character, but we don't really know that. Like, we know that Iris West is like that. I know that the CW Iris West maybe would overreach and then feel bad about asking for a scoop. I know that maybe comic book Iris West would do that, but I don't know this Iris. We saw her like a little bit in Zack Snyder's Justice League, I think. I'm not super good with these DCEU movies, but we saw her like a little bit there, and then we get a little bit of background info on her, but we still barely see her in this movie. Again, the one scene that she has is really it, and then she shows up briefly at the end. But yeah, we'll get to the end later. I've got other opinions on that. I really am not making this video to talk about the good qualities of The Flash. I don't know if you've noticed that already, but this is not a movie that I really enjoyed. So I'm not going to be talking about the first, like, 2 acts of it as much, because that's not really what upsets me. Because I think the first 2 acts of this movie are really good. I think they are really solid, really well put together. They made me laugh really often. Like, everything right up until about the worlds collide point was good. Which really sucks, because it was really good. Like, apparently the original treatment for this movie was going to be a Back to the Future style, just buddy comedy with the 2 Barrys, which I think would have been an interesting idea, because the dynamic with the 2 Barrys, like, doing this cool, like, commentary on how super fucking annoying Barry was in Zack Snyder's Justice League, by having a modern version of him, you know, have to deal with old Barry, and then we also get to see him grow up a lot more throughout the movie, which, sadly, we will never get to follow up on now, because the DCU is just toast. My gripes with the movie start and end at the worlds colliding scene, because, oh my god, there is so much wrong with it. To begin with, the villain of this movie sucks, because I don't know what the name of this villain is. I might Google it in between takes. I might not. I really do not care that much. So, I just Googled it, and it is definitely Black Flash. Which actually kind of bothers me a little more, because for those who don't know, this villain shows up very briefly in like 2 to 3 second stints, I think twice, before he shows up in the final act of the movie. And then when he does show up, Barry's like, hey, I'd like to introduce myself. Like, he makes a quip about how he's seen him before, but he doesn't know him. But that doesn't really land, because we have seen him before, but we've seen him in like 2-second moments. Also, apparently the second FNAF movie trailer came out while I was recording this, which, that's cool. It's such a weird use of Black Flash in general. I don't know if I said this already, but spoiler warning. So, Black Flash ends up being the, like, future version of the second Barry, which just makes absolutely no sense. There's a movie early on in the movie where Michael Keaton's Batman explains that the way that the timelines work is that when you go back and change it, it'll really keep you in, like, a different universe, but it doesn't work how we usually expect it to work. And I think that's a really good scene. I think it explains the way that this multiverse works really well. And it made that concept make a lot more sense to me, because going in, I was worried that Michael Keaton's Batman just wasn't going to make sense. But it does. There's a very reasonable, like, in-universe logical explanation for it. But that explanation's immediately ignored within the same movie. Black Flash is old Barry. Like, he's aged. He has an older voice. He looks different. He is a considerably older looking man. Not to mention, when he kills young Barry, he disappears, which makes no fucking sense in any way. Even if we didn't establish the spaghetti thing, him killing him and then just dying on the spot does not track to anything. So what I mentioned earlier by the part that turned me off of seeing this movie in theaters is there's a cameo scene that involves a bunch of old actors, including Adam West's Batman, and I'm playing it on screen right now. Maybe I might not. This whole thing might actually get copyright stricken. So if you're seeing this, it didn't. If you're seeing this early, it still might. There's still a chance. The whole scene is just the most obvious shill for, like, cameos, and it's not even that fun. When they showed up, I really just rolled my eyes, and I didn't have any other emotion to feel about it. They also immediately die. Seconds after these very well-respected, beloved actors show up, actors who are deceased in real life, almost all of them, their characters are shown to get blown up by the planets actually colliding, which is super fucked up. And I'm really surprised no one mentions that more, because that's just a top-tier decision. Also, Adam West might have been done by AI because he does not have ears. Cool. I think that's really all I have to say about this movie. I don't want this to be a longer review. I think this is already going to be my longest video ever. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.